Henry stood at the edge of the observation deck, the glow of Earth casting a pale blue light across his face. The station thrummed softly beneath his feet, a living machine orbiting a world that had barely begun to understand the stars. Tonight was not like any other night. Tonight, a princess would arrive, Freya, heir to the Luminar Empire, a civilization whose reach spanned hundreds of star systems. Henry's hands clenched the railing as he thought of the preparations. He had spent weeks learning the proper protocols, memorizing every nuance of Luminar etiquette. Every gesture mattered. Every word could tip the balance between respect and insult. The galaxy was watching. Humanity's place among the stars depended on this visit. A soft chime echoed through the deck. The main entrance doors hissed open. Henry turned and froze. Freya stepped through, her presence impossible to ignore. She was taller than he expected, with hair that shimmered like spun silver under the station lights. Her eyes, violet, piercing, and full of quiet authority, scanned the room like she was reading the very souls of everyone present. Her ceremonial gown flowed around her, catching the light in subtle waves, and behind her followed a dozen attendants, each moving in perfect synchrony. Henry swallowed, trying to steady his racing heart. He knew the rules: bow low, hands to chest, greet her in the Luminar tongue. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times, and yet, now that it was real, he felt small, almost insignificant. "Your Highness," he began, voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through him. "Welcome to Unity Station. I am Henry Cole, and I will be your guide during your stay." Freya's gaze lingered on him for barely a heartbeat. She didn't bow, didn't smile. She simply inclined her head, a subtle acknowledgement that seemed almost dismissive. Henry felt the sting, but he pressed on. "There are presentations prepared for you," he continued, "including a tour of the research facilities tomorrow, and—" A sudden hum interrupted him. From the side corridor, a figure emerged, tall, regal, and radiating authority. Freya's face immediately softened as she addressed the newcomer, speaking in the galactic common tongue with warmth Henry had not seen directed at him. In an instant, he was invisible. Henry felt a sharp heat rise within him. Not anger, not embarrassment, but the cold clarity of indignation. He had prepared, studied, and sacrificed sleep to ensure this visit went smoothly, and in one flick of attention, he was reduced to a spectator in his own briefing. He exhaled slowly. Then, without hesitation, he turned and walked away. Not with anger. Not with a dramatic storming of the hall. Just calm, deliberate steps, each one a statement: "I will not be dismissed." Behind him, the room remained frozen. Diplomats whispered. Attendants glanced at each other. Even Freya paused, briefly sensing that something had shifted, but only briefly. Henry's actions had sent a silent message, and in that quiet defiance, he reclaimed his dignity. 2 hours later, Henry packed his personal effects in his quarters, preparing to leave the station. Commander Marin, his superior, arrived, frustration etched across her face. "Henry, you can't just walk away. The princess is our guest. This is diplomacy." He looked up calmly, bag slung over his shoulder. "I understand protocol, but respect is not a suggestion. It's the foundation of everything. I won't compromise that, even for 100 empires." Her jaw tightened, but she knew there was no changing him. The young human officer had drawn a line, and it was a line no amount of political pressure could erase. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. Henry paused at the viewport, staring at the glowing curve of Earth below. Somewhere in that vast expanse, he felt the first stirrings of something far greater than politics, something personal, human, and powerful. The unyielding courage to stand for what mattered, no matter the cost. The calm of the observation deck shattered with a red alert siren. Lights flashed across the corridors of Unity Station, casting long, jagged shadows. Henry's heart raced as the intercom crackled. "Attention! Proximity alert! Unauthorized vessel approaching the northern docking bay." He exchanged a tense glance with Commander Marin. "Pirates?" she muttered, already moving toward the command console. "Yes," Henry replied, gripping the railing. "And they're fast. Too fast for the station defenses alone." The northern bay doors hissed open, revealing 3 sleek, black ships cutting through space like predatory shadows. Each one bristled with weapons, their hulls scarred from previous skirmishes. Henry's stomach twisted. On board one of the research vessels, the very ship Freya had expressed interest in touring, were scientists critical to humanity's next step in galactic diplomacy. And now they were in mortal danger. "Security teams mobilize." "Shields up," Commander Marin ordered, her voice a calm anchor amid the panic. "Henry, get me status on the civilians and the research teams." He tapped a series of holographic controls. The readings were grim. The research vessel was drifting, its engines offline. Pirate ships had already targeted its trajectory, planning to tow it into the nearby asteroid belt. Henry's mind raced. Hours of training, simulations, and diplomatic briefings all melted into one instinctual need: protect the people. And as he watched the holographic map, he noticed movement, unexpected but deliberate. Freya. She had slipped past the ceremonial guards, her silver cloak flowing like liquid metal. "I'm coming," she said, her voice firm. "I need to see this firsthand." Lady Srana, her chief aide, nearly shouted. "Your Highness, it's suicide." "You can't." "I can," Freya interrupted. "And I will. If I expect people to risk their lives for others, I need to understand why. I need to learn." Henry's jaw clenched. She was young, untrained in real combat, yet her resolve mirrored the same principle that had driven him to walk away in the reception hall. Courage rooted in respect, responsibility, and understanding. Within minutes, a boarding shuttle was prepped. Henry, a small team of security officers, and Freya, shield generator active, launched into the void. The shuttle glided toward the damaged vessel, thrusters burning blue streaks against the backdrop of stars. The pirate ships detected them instantly and opened fire. Lasers streaked across space, burning trails that could have cut through steel. Henry felt the shuttle shudder with each hit, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Hold formation," he barked. "Stay close to the shields. Move only when I give the signal." Freya clung to Lady Srana, her eyes wide behind the protective visor of her shield. Sparks danced across the shuttle hull, illuminating her pale, determined face. This was no longer diplomacy or protocol. This was raw, immediate, life-or-death action, and she was learning it firsthand. As the shuttle docked with the research vessel, Henry was the first through the airlock. The corridor beyond was chaos: smoke, flickering lights, and debris scattered from the pirate assault. Two groups of pirates had boarded ahead, expecting an easy plunder. Instead, they met trained human officers, coordinated, calm, and lethal in efficiency. Freya moved slowly behind, observing every maneuver, every command. Her eyes reflected fear, awe, and something deeper, a realization that courage and respect were inseparable, especially in moments that mattered. They reached the laboratory where the scientists were barricaded. Dr. Cole, injured but conscious, managed a weak smile. "About time," he rasped. Henry nodded, checking Cole's wound. "Let's get you out of here." But as they began evacuating, a violent tremor shook the vessel. The tractor beam holding the research ship in the pirates' control was pulling it toward the asteroid belt. Time was slipping away. Henry's eyes met Freya's. She didn't hesitate. "I can handle this," she said, activating her shield's external protocols. The device glowed faintly as she prepared to enter the void of space. Henry exhaled sharply. She was inexperienced, but her courage was undeniable. In that moment, he realized she wasn't just a princess learning diplomacy. She was a student of humanity in its purest form: action, responsibility, and respect for life. The shuttle docked with a jolt, the corridor shaking under the strain. Henry and the security officers moved with precision, weapons at the ready. Sparks rained from damaged panels, and smoke filled the air. Every second counted. "Freya, stay close to me," Lady Srana commanded, guiding the princess through the chaotic corridor. Freya's eyes were wide behind her helmet, heart pounding, but she moved deliberately, taking in every detail. This was her first real exposure to danger, and she was learning fast. They reached the laboratory where Dr. Cole and the other scientists were barricaded. Cole was wounded, a streak of blood on his shoulder, but he gave a weak grin. "Took you long enough," he joked, though his voice was strained. "Had to make an entrance," Freya replied, voice steady despite the adrenaline. As they began evacuating the scientists, the asteroid's gravity tugged violently on the vessel. The pirate ship, now disabled but still dragging the research vessel, threatened to crush everything. Henry's voice cut through the comms. "We need someone outside. Tractor beam linkage is still active. Time is against us." Freya's hand went instinctively to her shield generator. "I'll do it," she said, determination etched on her face. Lady Srana's eyes widened. "Your Highness, that's too dangerous." "I know," Freya said, "but I can't ask them to risk their lives if I won't do the same. This is the only way to learn what humanity really means in action." Before anyone could stop her, she activated the shield and slipped into the vacuum of space. Henry's heart raced as he monitored her through the external cameras. Freya crawled along the hull, plasma cutter in hand, reaching the tractor beam connection. Sparks flew as the cutter met the metal linkage. Seconds ticked like hours. The asteroid loomed closer. The pirate ship spun wildly, debris flaring around it. Freya's shield flickered under strain, oxygen running dangerously low. Henry didn't hesitate. He suited up, grabbed a thruster pack, and launched into the void. The cold hit him like a wall, but he focused on Freya's tumbling form. He reached her, securing her in his arms, and fired his thrusters to stabilize their movement. The shuttle's rescue tether, thrown with perfect accuracy by Lady Srana, caught them just in time. They tumbled inside, hearts pounding, bodies shaking but alive. Freya's shield had failed completely, but she had accomplished the impossible. The scientists were safe, the pirate threat neutralized, and humanity's principles of teamwork, respect, and courage had been proven. Back on the yacht, Freya removed her helmet, breath ragged but eyes shining with understanding. "Thank you," she said quietly to Henry and Lady Srana, "for showing me what it really means to work as a team." Henry nodded. "That's what we do. Not for rank, not for titles, but for each other. That's what dignity looks like in action." Freya looked out at the stars, processing everything. For the first time, she felt a deep connection to human values, not the ceremonial kind she had been taught, but real, tested in life-or-death moments. The rescue made headlines across the Confederation. Images of a princess working alongside humans captured imaginations, but the real story was the lesson it conveyed. Respect, courage, and dignity are universal, not granted by power but earned through action. For Freya, the experience was transformative. She had seen firsthand that leadership and honor weren't about authority alone. They were about empathy, integrity, and standing up for what mattered. And somewhere in the quiet corners of space, Henry and Freya both knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had shown its principles in the harshest environment imaginable, and the galaxy had taken notice. The lesson was simple, yet profound. Respect and dignity are not privileges, they are rights. And sometimes, to teach that truth, one must act, even when the stars themselves seem indifferent. The aftermath of the rescue mission sent ripples throughout the Galactic Confederation. Delegates from dozens of species whispered in halls and corridors, discussing the audacity and courage of the humans, and the unusual bravery of Princess Freya. Back on the yacht, Freya sat with Lady Srana, finally allowing herself to breathe. Her hands shook slightly from the adrenaline, but her mind was sharp, analyzing every detail. They actually did it. They worked together, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Lady Srana nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. Humans value each individual. Even someone like you, they respect your actions, but also expect you to respect theirs. That's why your involvement mattered so much." Freya stared out the viewport at the endless stars, the pale blue of Earth distant below. For the first time, she felt the weight of what had truly occurred, not just the mission's success, but the lesson it carried. Leadership was more than issuing commands. Authority was not the same as respect, and courage was meaningful only when paired with empathy. Later, at the Grand Council on Vexera Prime, the debate about Earth's membership in the Confederation was no longer just political. It had become philosophical. Delegates spoke of dignity, mutual respect, and the unique perspective humans brought. When it was Freya's turn to address the council, she stepped forward with confidence. Her violet eyes swept across the room, hundreds of species staring in anticipation. "Honored members of the Grand Council," she began, voice clear and composed, "I stand here not as a princess asserting power, but as someone who has seen human courage firsthand. Captain Morrison and his team taught me something invaluable. Respect is earned in action, not demanded by rank. Every being, regardless of status, deserves basic dignity. That is the foundation of trust, cooperation, and understanding across all civilizations." A murmur ran through the chamber. Royalty rarely admitted mistakes, and yet here was a princess acknowledging a lesson learned from humans. The council listened, captivated not by ceremony, but by authenticity. The vote on Earth's membership passed with a narrow but decisive majority. Humanity was granted full status in the Confederation, with a special mandate to act as cultural liaisons, bridging differences between hierarchical and egalitarian civilizations. Back on Unity Prime, Freya and Captain Morrison met privately. For the first time, they spoke as equals, not diplomat and princess, not leader and subordinate. "You've changed my understanding of leadership," Freya said softly. I thought authority was about control, but it's really about understanding and respect. Morrison smiled. And you've shown that learning can go both ways. Sometimes, the student teaches the teacher. Freya's expression softened. I want to visit Earth, she admitted. Not as royalty, but as a student. To live among humans, learn from them directly. Morrison nodded. You'll see the world from a different perspective. You'll understand that respect isn't given, it's built, every day, with every action. Months later, Freya walked the streets of a human city, blending in, observing, asking questions, and taking notes. She lived the principles she had learned in space: collaboration, empathy, and dignity. Back on Unity Prime, Morrison trained a new class of human diplomats. He shared the story of the rescue, the Grand Council, and the lesson Freya had internalized. Remember this, he told them. The galaxy has thousands of species, millions of cultures. Our job isn't to impose our values, but to show that dignity and respect matter to everyone everywhere. Stand firm on what defines you as human, and act with integrity. That's how you build bridges. A message pinged on his personal device. It was from Freya, a photograph of her in a classroom, laughing with human students, no guards, no ceremonial protocol. The text read simply, learning to be part of a team. Thank you for teaching me it was possible. Morrison looked out at the stars, the blue and green of Earth beneath him. Humanity had taken its place in the galaxy, not through dominance, not through fear, but through courage, respect, and the simple principle that every individual mattered. And for the first time, he realized, the galaxy was changing, one human lesson at a time. 6 months had passed since the Grand Council vote. The Galactic Confederation was still adjusting to humanity's presence, and Earth was no longer seen as a fledgling planet, but as a valued member with unique insights into dignity, equality, and mutual respect. On Unity Prime, Captain Jake Morrison walked through the bustling corridors of the diplomatic wing. He passed ambassadors from hundreds of species, each busy with negotiations, debates, or research. A few nodded to him respectfully, others paused to ask about Princess Freya's studies on Earth. The atmosphere had subtly changed. Diplomacy was no longer just about protocol, it was about understanding, dialogue, and connection. In a quiet garden chamber, Freya sat among human students in casual clothing. Her violet eyes sparkled with curiosity as she listened intently to a lecture on political philosophy. No attendants, no royal trappings, just her learning, absorbing, and asking questions. Occasionally, she scribbled notes in her small notebook, recording quotes from philosophers, observations about teamwork, and insights on leadership. Morrison arrived to check on her progress. He smiled as he watched her interact naturally with her peers. "How's the student life treating you?" he asked. Freya looked up, a genuine smile on her face. "It's different, challenging, exciting, and humbling. I never realized how much I had to unlearn about power and respect." Jake nodded. "It takes time, but that's the point. Real learning isn't about memorizing rules. It's about understanding people and treating them with dignity, no matter their rank or species." Freya's expression softened. "You know, I used to think that respect came from fear or authority. Now I understand. It's earned through actions, through empathy. It's a choice, not a requirement." Jake's gaze drifted to the window, to the blue-green curve of Earth in the distance. And that's what humanity offers the galaxy. A reminder that every being has worth. That dignity is universal. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the station around them, the artificial trees swaying gently in the engineered breeze. Freya finally spoke again. "I want to continue learning. I want to travel, meet other species, and see how these lessons play out across the stars. And I want to share what I've learned. Maybe even teach others that power and respect don't have to conflict." Jake smiled. "Then you're ready. The galaxy isn't going to change overnight, but one person can start a ripple. And now you're one of those people." Freya looked at him thoughtfully. "And you'll keep guiding me?" "Always," Jake replied. "But now we're equals. I won't bow, you won't command. We'll learn together." Far across the station, diplomats watched the humans moving through the corridors. A small group of younger species whispered excitedly. "That human captain, he walks differently," one said. "With dignity, not arrogance." "Maybe this is how the galaxy should be," another replied. "Mutual respect, not hierarchy. Maybe that's the future." On Earth, news outlets began reporting about Princess Freya's student program, showing images of her learning alongside humans, sharing meals, and engaging in debates. Humans and aliens alike began to see that the Confederation was not just about power, tradition, and politics. It could also be about understanding, cooperation, and shared humanity. And so, the seeds planted by a single human who refused to compromise his dignity had begun to grow. Across worlds and species, conversations started, policies shifted, and perspectives widened. Respect was no longer just a privilege granted by the powerful. It was a right that could be recognized by all. Freya closed her notebook, looked up at Jake, and said softly, "I think I finally understand. This is what it means to be human." Jake smiled. "Welcome home, Princess. The galaxy is a better place because you've chosen to learn, and because humans refuse to compromise their dignity." Above them, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the beginning of a new era, a galaxy where respect, courage, and understanding might just become the strongest forces of all.